What did you feel when hearing that? Was it an overwhelming sensation of nostalgia taking you back to the reveal of Halo 3 at E3 2006, followed shortly by the many memories you have of downing an entire can of Mountain Dew Gamer Fuel before playing the game for hours at a time, trash talking to the people you just won against, or slamming your desk over the people you just lost to, making new friends until one day you eventually log on to Xbox Live only to find that half of them have been offline for the last 10 years? No? Just me then? Okay, well, never mind, I guess. Hello there, guys, gals, ladies and gentlemen. It's Angry Warzone Boy Leitmotif here, talking about a little thing called music. But not just any ordinary music, but the music from Halo. I think we all know how important music is when it comes to Halo and how it makes us feel, and how just by hearing a track, it can transport us back to a particular point in our lives. We can remember roughly what we were doing, how old we were, what year of school we were in, what life was like, etc., all at the drop of a singular note. I think it's safe to say that Marty O'Donnell and Michael Salvatori, the resident composers at Bungie during the development of the Halo games, are masterminds and wrote some of the best damn music that didn't just grace the ears of gamers, but all those who listened to it. You know, a soundtrack from a game or film has reached new levels of awesomeness when you and your mates unironically listen to it in the car and don't feel a shred of guilt. So, in today's video, I want to broadly analyse the music of Halo, talk about a little thing called leitmotifs, emotional equity, the development of the music throughout the course of Halo's 20-year history, and take a look at where we're headed next with Halo Infinite. So, let's put down the groundwork for everything I'm going to be talking about here. Coined by composer Richard Wagner, who was kind of an arsehole, a leitmotif is a fragmentary musical idea that represents something in a story. It can be a character, it can be a certain location, or even a theme in the story, like love. Take, for example, My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion. I mean, that motif is used in Titanic during moments of intense passion and connection between Jack and Rose, i.e., it's the theme for love. As a counter to this, you have a musical theme, not to be confused with the story or narrative theme that I was talking about just before, which is a fully fleshed out musical idea from start to finish, and doesn't necessarily have to represent something in the narrative. Some notable examples include the many works of John Williams, in particular the theme for Star Wars. Now, the theme for Star Wars, we only really associate with Star Wars because it's the first thing that we hear when we press the play button on those movies. In the actual context of the movies themselves, the Star Wars theme doesn't represent a certain character or a certain narrative theme or location, it's just the first thing we hear. Now, funnily enough, this is a very similar technique used by Marty O'Donnell when he was composing the music for the Halo games, though he put an interesting spin on it. Up until Halo's release in 2001, music in video games, especially shooters, didn't really follow these rules. Sure, there was a definite structure and melodies you could easily pick out from certain games, like the iconic theme from Doom, but there weren't any other connections made between the characters, places, or narrative themes in those games. However, when Halo came about, that changed forever. Combat Evolved did something very different for shooters from that era. Not only did it put its story at the forefront with cinematic cutscenes, the likes of which hadn't been seen up until that point, but it also had the music to match this cinematic tone.
Joe had told me that the emotions for this piece should be ancient, mysterious, and epic. And so as I was driving, I thought, okay, ancient, you know, monks are ancient, so I'm going to start with some sort of monk chant. It's got to stick in people's heads, and then we'll go into something sort of epic and pounding cellos and drums and stuff.
The brief outline that Marty O'Donnell got whilst working on the theme for Halo was about as broad as could be, yet he somehow managed to pull together what is arguably one of the most recognizable themes, not just in gaming, but ever. The amazing thing about this Gregorian monk chant is that it's more than just representative of Halo as a game. You know how I mentioned the Star Wars theme, and how its only association with the films is from its use in the opening credits? Halo's theme manages to do both and crosses over the line between being just an external theme that we hear when loading up the main menu, and a leitmotif that is present in-game that actually represents something. During the events of the games, we frequently hear this piece reused and reorchestrated to represent Halo itself. Not the game or the franchise, but the location we find ourselves on, this ancient, epic, and mysterious superweapon that is hundreds of thousands of years old. Take this example from Truth and Reconciliation, where Captain Keyes is reciting what he overheard being spoken by his Covenant captors. Which actually doesn't make a lot of sense, come to think of it, because the only species in Combat Evolved that speak English are the grunts, and even then, there weren't any grunts near Captain Keyes when he was captured. But also, the Covenant see Halo rings as a religious thing, not a weapon. They wouldn't know that. So, you know what? I'm leaving. I give up. I'm not.
They call it Halo.
One moment, sir. Accessing the Covenant BattleNet. According to the data in their networks, the ring has some kind of deep religious significance. If I'm analyzing this correctly, they believe that Halo is some kind of weapon, one with vast, unimaginable power.
That's true. The Covenant kept saying that whoever controls Halo controls the fate of the universe.
Now I see. I have intercepted a number of messages about a Covenant search team scouting for a control room. I thought they were looking for the bridge of a cruiser that I damaged during the battle above the ring. But they must be looking for Halo's control room.
Or you have this moment from the end of the Maw, Halo Combat Evolved's final mission.
Scanning. Just dust and echoes. We're all that's left. We did what we had to do. For Earth. An entire Covenant armada obliterated, and the Flood. We had no choice. Halo. It's finished.
No. I think we're just getting started.
Again, you can hear that same melody as Chief and Cortana reconcile with what it is that they've just done. They've destroyed Halo, though at what cost? The lives of many good men and women were lost on that ring, and so the leitmotif here takes on a much darker and somber tone. The monk chant and its melody are representative of the Halo ring and also the species that made them the Forerunners to an extent. Like the outline Marty got from the folks at Bungie, the Forerunners and their creations are indeed ancient, epic in their scope, and mysterious. Therefore, the leitmotif isn't heard in-game in Halo 3 ODST, or Reach, aside from a cheeky little reference in the game soundtrack. And isn't heard again till the events of the Mission Composer in Halo 4, where we find ourselves orbiting Halo Installation 03.
A Halo?
Installation 3. It's where Infinity found the coordinates to Requiem.
Then why are they bypassing it?
Because the Composer's not on the ring. What are you waiting for? That station's not gonna save itself.
Which is why this makes it even more jarring when we get to Halo 5, as there isn't even a Halo ring in this game. And I know about the legendary ending, but I'm choosing not to count it, because the Halo ring is not at the forefront of Halo 5 like it is in other games. Yet for some reason, the first thing we hear when loading up the game is this. What does the UNSC Infinity have to do with this piece of music again? To me, this never felt right, and I think I now know why, because there's literally no reason for it to be in this game, aside from the fan backlash to Halo 4's music that didn't include the theme on the main menu. This is probably the biggest problem I have with Halo 5's music, is that it feels reactionary. Because of how unhappy people were with Halo 4's soundtrack, we get over-orchestrated versions of tracks that came from the original trilogy, but there's normally no reason for them to be there. This is why I think so many people flocked to Halo 5's soundtrack upon release, and heralded it as being amazing, but soon forgot about it. In a bubble, I think the music composed by Kazuma Janouchi, and I apologize if I butchered his name, but I think his music is excellent, and he's an incredibly talented composer, the likes of which I will never be able to reach. But when you're looking at it within the context of the game, it doesn't make a lot of sense with what's been established in the game's musical continuity beforehand. In many ways, the purpose of when a motif is used is more important than just using it for the sake of using it. Marty O'Donnell has composed several great recurring themes and leitmotifs for the Halo series, and as he said in this interview with GameSpot in 2009,
It's not easy for me to write music. It's easier for me to continue writing music that I've already written. I don't know if that makes sense, but if I already have a theme or I got stuff, I can make different versions of it, or I can play with those themes.
Now, some people might consider that to be lazy or complacent, but I think it might just be the best thing about Marty's music for Halo. A feeling of continuity and consistency between the games, whether that's through similar orchestration or a familiar theme or motif. From one game to the next, you know that when the flood turns up, you're likely going to hear those high-pitched piercing strings and those off-kilter drums. When you're fighting alongside a group of Marines, you can bet that at some point you're going to hear the marching drums and brass of Brothers in Arms. The best thing about these recurring motifs is that Marty has been able to develop them between games and add more to them. As the Halo games became gradually more complex in their graphical presentation, moving closer to being a film in their terms of production values due to having a bigger budget to work with, it allowed Bungie, and thus Marty, to do more. You can feel the music improving as pieces that were maybe composed on a MIDI keyboard with sound patches can now be heard as they were originally intended to be heard with full 60-piece orchestras. Again, Marty keeps that musical continuity I was talking about by revisiting these motifs often and using them when they're needed. One example of a piece that grew and changed between games was the leitmotif for Master Chief, which rhymed, the leitmotif for Master Chief, I like that. First heard in Halo 2 during Chief's heroic exploit to
Give the Covenant back their bomb.
This piece, entitled The Last Spartan, which, looking back on it now, is kind of invalid, appears a few times in Halo 2's campaign and again in Halo 3.
Fucking awesome.
We were also given a theme for Cortana in Halo 3. That iconic piano riff, first heard in the E3 2006 teaser trailer, is representative of Cortana, and by extension, getting her back. After spending several minutes fighting through the corridors of High Charity infested with flood, you finally reach Cortana, and we get this amazing moment.
You found me. But so much of me is wrong. Out of place. You might be too late.
You know me. When I make a promise,
You keep it. I do know how to pick 'em.
lucky me. Do you still have it?
The activation index from the first Halo ring. A little souvenir I hung on to, just in case.
We start off by hearing Cortana's theme, then transition into Chief's, while also hearing the Halo monk chant reorchestrated with strings as Cortana mentions the activation index from the first Halo ring. All these musical ideas come together during the penultimate mission in the game and gives us a sense of finality, like everything from these last 3 games has been building to this moment. We've come full circle. This then brings us to Halo 4, the black sheep of the Halo franchise, and a game that has fans seemingly divided right down the middle. And the same can be said for the game's soundtrack, though funnily enough, I kinda love it. What so many people fail to realize about Halo 4's soundtrack is that it's different for a reason. Much like how ODST took on an almost completely different tone to the original trilogy with its jazzy noir-like undertones, and Reach with its brand new selection of melodies and almost Middle Eastern feeling with its use of the Persian scale, Halo 4 takes us on a journey to a very different type of Forerunner world, a shield world, with technology in places that are sometimes familiar, but overall very different from what we've previously encountered. If the music of the original trilogy was representative of the Halo rings and that setting, most notably the monk chant, I think it makes sense for us to not hear it during this game. We're going to take just a little side quest here to talk about something that you guys have probably been waiting for me to touch on, which is the second part of the Halo theme, which is fondly called by a lot of people as the Warthog Run music. Which, I mean, yeah, it kind of is, but it's not just exclusive to when you drive a Warthog though there are quite a fair few notable examples. It's even a rare instance of a piece of music from the original trilogy finding its way into Halo Reach.
Get in here!
Oh, why?
Get in the fucking car, Marty!
Hear that percussion? There it is. This theme, I think, is better associated with acts of bravery and action. Storming the beach in Silent Cartographer, or the many Warthog runs, this music is almost always associated with an important moment in the story of each game, and a moment of great courage and determination. However, my favourite use of it by far in any Halo game, and this is going to come as a bit of a shock to some people, is in Halo 4. Yep, that's right, the Warthog Run motif is indeed in Halo 4, even if just for a short moment. Take a listen to this from the final mission in the campaign, Midnight. You can very clearly hear that melody of ascending notes that many of us associate with Halo's Warthog runs and action sequences. Instead of Chief running away from the danger in a last-ditch effort, this time he's running right to it, to the center of the Didax ship. First time I played the game, I heard that riff and I fist bumped the air. It was awesome. In a soundtrack composed of almost completely new themes, this one moment had so much more importance to me than if we had heard it used many times in the campaign before. Again, it's another instance of using those motifs and themes when they are necessary, not just for the sake of it. And this is the power of these recurring themes and motifs. Something as simple as a pattern of 4 ascending notes is enough to rustle the jimmies of Halo fans everywhere. One note on a piano can shoot us back to over 10 years ago to when we were anticipating the release of and playing Halo 3. It's a credit to the genius of Marty O'Donnell and Michael Salvatori that they were able to come up with these simple but timeless melodies that have long lived past the departure of their original composers from the Halo series. Marty O'Donnell has frequently used the term emotional equity, which he associates with building a rapport between the music in the game and the player listening to it. I think it's also the reason why the Halo soundtracks since Marty left have been so divisive. In many ways, he's kind of ambushed future composers in the Halo series. So let's break that down. Emotional equity. Emotional meaning relating to a person's emotions or characterized by intense feeling, and equity being the quality of being fair and impartial, justice or fairness. What emotional equity means is that we've come to expect these themes and melodies because we're emotionally attached to them through years of playing alongside them and having them follow us around like a constant companion. We know when we want to hear these themes, and you can bet that we want that promise delivered, hence the fairness of equity. It's a give and a take. We play the games and we want to hear the music that matches with what we're doing. These music cues in Halo's Combat Evolved through to 3 are used for certain situations and, like I said earlier, for narrative themes within the story, characters, locations, and similar events, which is why we hear motifs from CE pop up again in Halos 2 and 3 and even games after that. It's not entirely because they're nostalgic, it's also because they're quietly saying, hey, what you're doing right now, it's kind of similar to this other thing from one of our other games. And to quote George Lucas,
again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme. Every stanza kind of rhymes with the last one.
It's in my opinion why Halo 5's use of old melodies from the original trilogy feels wrong. They're never used when they should be. It's great to hear the old Halo theme reimagined when we see Chief and Blue Team kicking some Covenant ass, and again, the version of the monk chant in Halo 5 is great, but these motifs aren't being used in the right ways and at the right times, and therefore they're not as emotionally impactful to us, the player. This then brings us to Halo Infinite, which already seems to be getting this right. With a return to the series' roots exploring another Halo ring, this time Installation 07, we hear the return of many great tracks from Halo's past, including A Walk in the Woods, which many of us associate with trekking through the strange geometry of Forerunner installations, what many of us call the Warthog Run theme, and of course, the Gregorian monk chant. And no doubt there will be more reimaginings of classic pieces that we have yet to feast our ears on. The core of these old pieces is there, of these old motifs is there, the heart is there. It just remains to be seen if these reimaginings and reorchestrations of these themes will be used in the right way.
No, I don't want to chance a remote detonation. I need to stay here.
I'm not coming with you this time.
Don't let her go. Don't ever let her go.
You know me. When I make a promise,
You keep it. Just keep your head down. There's 2 of us in here now, remember?
So, thank you all very much for watching. This video was something of a side quest for me, as I did a ton of research on Halo's music leading up to a project that I've been working on for quite some time. This is a collection of the big takeaways I got from listening to these soundtracks on repeat and watching Lord knows how many hours of interviews dating back to the Dark Ages. If you enjoyed this video and are keen for some more of my content, feel free to chuck a like and a subscription, as it helps keep me motivated to keep making videos for everyone. If you want to ask me a question, come play a few rounds of Halo with me or just chat, I stream on Twitch, so be sure to know when I go live by following me at twitch.tv/Leitmotif. You wouldn't chuck a follow? You're way scared.